I like it.
It is now 6:30. I'll call the Moses Lake City Council meeting to order today, Tuesday, October 24th. Make sure your phones are turned to silent. And citizens who've requested to address the council will be called on at the appropriate time. Will the deputy clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor Myers. Councilmember Fancher,
Present.
Councilmember Swartz,
Present.
Councilmember Madewell,
Present.
Councilmember Eck,
Present.
Councilmember Skog,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Martinez,
Present.
and Mayor Myers.
Present. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do need to add old business item 10 to the agenda, so I need motion to approve, to authorize myself to execute the city manager's contract for item number 10 as a part of the approval of the agenda. Does any council member wish to move a consent agenda item to a business item for individual discussion and vote, or make other modification for tonight's agenda? Need a motion to approve adding item 10 as well.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Citizens' comments. The council invites citizen comments to hear from the public on matters before the council or relevant to the council's business. Council may request staff research comments received for potential future action. Please take private conversations outside. When you're called to speak, please begin with stating your name and city of residence for the record. First off, we will have Alicia DeLuigi.
Good evening. If it pleases the council, Alicia DeLuigi, Lisa from Moses Lake. So today, my Zoom meeting with Cantwell and Murray's office, the most pertinent news with regards to this area is that Washington State was given $1 billion for to be a hydro hub. And so cross your fingers that we get to get some stuff in this area too. And then, of course, pray for Israel. On agenda item number 4, with regards to the fire impact fee ordinance, I'm going to go ahead and ask the city council in representing my voice to pass that so that we're not further kicking the can down the road. It will help out with cutting the waiting time for CPAs. We have the police or the fire department and the EMTs have an increase of call volumes where it's necessary to do now. We have an expansion and growth where it's necessary to do now, and a one-time fee to go to new builds versus every year everyone's insurance going up is, well, let's just say I don't want anybody to be found with their face down and a pitchfork in their back and the coroner's office saying death by self-inflicted wound. The reason and rationale behind that is that if we do the one-time fee, it's going to go straight to the fire department. If we don't, and they lose their response time and the insurances go up, then everybody's going to have to pay higher insurance rates. And that's not going to go to any of us. That's going to go to the insurance carriers. So please make sure that gets passed this round. Thank you. On agenda number 5, the MOU for the sleep center operations. I went ahead and read it over. I'm in agreement with that. Although I would like to see an addendum because I would like to see monthly progress reports, like with their numbers, not just the financial numbers, but their success rates. Everybody at Hope Source has been, one thing that I really, really, really have to express and emphasize is that the employees at Hope Source, the people that take care of the veteran stuff are veterans. The people that are helping transition those from homeless to not are people that have actually walked through their lives. They have more than empathy. They've literally walked in those shoes. And that level of compassion that they have is a very beautiful and it's a beautiful thing for somebody to have in a position as such. But I would like an addendum either on an MOU or on this MOU or in the future to also include progress reports, please and thank you. I just wanted to give you the heads up. The Seattle is now facing a water crisis with regards to their shortage of their drinking water as well. So now with our funding, we're going to have some competition. But it also might be beneficial if we play our cards right in getting more federal funding. Last meeting, I talked to you about putting out the notice with regards to getting a CARP legislation for our keeping our waters clean. So in good news, after that on King 5, Cisco and Megs actually did a segment specifically on utilizing fish carcasses for fertilizer. So I went ahead and let Judy Warnick know to please go ahead and sponsor it because it's going to be passed. So that's just, I mean, the bill hasn't been written yet, but that's some of my connections way of saying, okay, go. Let's see. With regards to the budget, I have some concerns to some of the cuts that you guys are looking at making. I don't want to have to delay our new police building because the further we delay it, the more it's going to end up costing. And there's actually ways that you guys can get work with funding to be able to make sure that you guys don't have to cut that out. And I highly encourage you to talk to our former city manager or managers, Joe, Gil, John. I don't know how much experience with regards to being able to finagle those numbers that Kevin has or Allison, because you guys don't have to make the cuts that you're looking at. So thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions, please ask.
Any
Good.
questions, comments? Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Next, we have Ida Deeds.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm bringing up.
Just your name and city of residence for the record.
Pardon?
Name and city of residence for the record.
Oh, Ida Deeds, and I'm a resident of Moses Lake.
Thank you.
Okay. Forgive me because I'm kind of a little bit nervous. I've never done this before, but I've had some issues with an individual that built a weapon, and this weapon is being used in the city limits to actually target me and a few other areas. He built, I have pictures of it. He built what they call a apparatus that is a slingshot, and it is a very large one so that he's able to maneuver in putting whatever he wants in that sling pocket and to project it to my house, which has caused vandalism to my property and to my cars. And so I went more than once to the police department, and they have case numbers that I've recorded. And I went to the judge in Ephrata to have an anti-harassment order be put in place. the police department, 2 officers, one was a supervisor and another one was officer that was on duty, advised me to come to the council members and talk to them about banning this weapon. They were saying that they can't do anything at this point because this weapon is not listed in record of different types of weapons that are not to be used. But this weapon that he's designed has a very powerful sling when he pulls it back, and it has done somewhat damages to my property. I can pass the pictures to you if you wanted to see them. I'm seeking your guys' help in banning this weapon in some way. Every time that he's used it, he right away uses it in the evening hours so nobody can see him. And then he takes it down and hides it. But the police already know what he's doing, and they can track exactly where the eggs from the splatter that it's coming from. So if you don't mind, I can pass the picture. The last picture is my property that's being splattered. The police officer, Taylor, went over there, took pictures, and he had next to this apparatus, he had what they call steely balls that are being ready to be used. So I am asking for you guys' help in some way that we can ban this so that it can be confiscated, because he's also shot it. I live on Peninsula and it's a very busy street, but he's also using it in an open field. He claims that he's doing targeting, but what he's doing is he's targeting me and he's intimidating me. It's on a swivel platform, so he can turn it any which way he wants to be able to projectile that, whatever he puts in that sling. So I've asked the police officer numerous times, you know, because my car got splattered, my house has been splattered numerous times, my carport's been splattered, and he's out of my range of my cameras. He has this on his property and it can projectile at least 1,000 feet to where he can hit my home that's across the street. So basically, I do have the judge approved my anti-harassment, so I do have a court date to go in. And other than that, I'm just asking for the city council to help me on this situation. I look at it as a weapon, and it is. And I feel like every time he gets it out and he sets it up, I feel like he's targeting me, because he'll point it in the direction. And the other day with a friend, he demonstrated, not at my house, but he stood there laughing, that he knows he's done this before, laughing about getting away with something that not in the footage of my camera. So.
Any questions or comments from the council?
Mayor, let me, if I could, I got the message today from Mrs. Deeds. Actually, I tried to call her, but she didn't answer. So I asked Interim Chief Sands to look into it. She reported 3 incidents. I asked him to look into it because, frankly, if we could prove that he's doing it, we could charge him with malicious mischief. And so, Dave, you got anything you want to add?
Yeah, it would appear that we can show that things are being thrown or otherwise shot at her house, but we can't say definitively, or we have no proof that it's him. There's a direction, and certainly that's towards her house and from nominally his house, if you were to draw a line, but it could also come from the sidewalk. We just have no proof, which is what we need. Again, not saying he's not doing it. I'm just saying that we don't have the proof to do it. So as far as the malicious mischief, it's my understanding that it's eggs at this point. So it'd probably be actually maybe attempted malicious mischief. at this point. Again, not saying that it's not frustrating to Ms. Deeds. I don't mean to say that it isn't, but we just have no proof to push forward a criminal case yet.
Thank you very much for listening to my plea. And may I speak with you after the meeting? Because I'm hard in hearing and I really couldn't hear what you were saying. So maybe after the meeting, we can.
Ma'am, I think you're the first person that has told me that, and bless you. Usually they tell me to shut up. So thank you very much. Yeah, I actually, as soon as you walk over here, I'll be with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, council members.
Deputy Mayor Martinez.
This is a question for law enforcement and our city manager. So if we can't, or you can't prove that he's doing it, is there an option to make what he's utilizing? Can we put a ban on those things so that we can confiscate it? Or it still needs to be proven that he's using it to do it?
If we can show that he's using it, then we can take it as evidence. It's just at this point, we cannot show that that is what he is doing with it.
Okay.
Our current ordinance prohibits anything that is being shot out, but it's more like a weapon, like a handgun, rifle, something like that. This is from what I read in the report is basically a large slingshot,
Mhm.
and slingshots aren't necessarily banned in the city.
But can we?
That would be a difficult one to put in there because a lot of kids are probably using slingshots around the city.
Councilmember Schwartz.
Yes, I think this is an interesting discussion. Yeah, I mean, I think the issue here is because I thought about this as well. Why couldn't you just ban the offending item? But the problem here is not that the person is doing this. I mean, that is the problem, but that we can not at this point catch the person doing it. So let's say the person was shooting at your house with a submachine gun. Until you can prove that, then it didn't occur. And those are illegal currently. So unfortunately, making slingshots illegal in this case would do nothing until we have proof that the person did it. But it sounds like the existing laws on the books would make it such that the problem would cease to exist if we do catch him. So, okay.
Any other questions? Councilmember Scogg?
Although we can't ban slingshots, I think we should make people who are harassing other people very aware, and often visits from well-built big policemen, and say, knock it off.
I believe this gentleman's been contacted 3 times, at least twice. I don't know if the third one he was.
He has, and by fit policemen, not by me.
Well, I mean, somewhere along the line, there needs to be something that we as a city can do where we don't have citizens going, and it's like the gal who was down on Marina, who was, which you guys took care of. I think there should be some creative ways to take care of it.
I would say that if it continues, we also have video cameras that we can maybe look at moving to the area to
Yep.
maybe get a better view. So we have options.
Yes, I guess I would just ask, at what point does it become harassment?
Sounds like it is.
You'd have to prove him. You'd have to
Okay.
prove it was him. That's, I mean, go back to what we're talking about. You'd have to prove that it is coming from him and not somebody maybe in the household or something else that's doing it.
Sure. I mean, it sounds fairly malicious
Yeah.
and egregious. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do we have any cameras that are available?
I would have to check. We may have some cameras there. As far as I know, all of our cameras are deployed, but we may have some game cameras. I'd have to check on that.
I know we've got cameras out right now that are watching for graffiti in high graffiti areas.
Okay.
So
I think if there was one available that could capture the side of her house that gets hit, that would be a worthwhile adventure for a little while anyway.
Okay. Moving on, we have Jeremy Nolan.
Jeremy Nolan, Moses Lake. So I saw several folks there at the PUD today. I appreciate everybody coming out and showing up from both the city council and some staff. I appreciate you guys coming out. For those that weren't aware, there's proposed policy changes that are happening that could have a significant negative impact, economic impact in the entire county. That is both to existing customers as well as any potential customers, employers that are looking to move into this area. So that could be potential job losses as well as a lot of the economic growth that we've been enjoying could stop. So I am urging everyone, both on the city council and city staff, to be paying attention to what that is, to stay engaged. This is likely to be a long-term process. Want to be, the PUD serves all customers, and we want to make sure that it stays that way so that all customers of the PUD, and which are employers, ratepayers, small businesses, farmers, residents, can all stay viable in this county. So the city of Moses Lake is, by far the largest municipal entity in the county, with especially from a population base, and this city council representing that population. Urge you all to stay highly invested in and diligent with them. So, any questions?
Shock and awe, baby.
Shocking. Do it, Mark. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Larry Engel, would you like to speak now or wait till item 4? Larry, are you in the audience? I guess we can wait till item 4. We'll wait. Moving on to the mayor's report, we have a proclamation, Native American Heritage Month, so I'll read that now. Whereas Native Americans have inhabited the area now known as Washington State since time immemorial, and today 29 federally recognized Indian tribes, out-of-state tribes with treaty reserved rights, and other tribal communities reside in Washington. And whereas members and descendants of tribes around the United States and First Nations of Canada also reside in the state of Washington. And whereas Native American contributions and values have shaped the social, political, environmental, and economic fabric of the state, while also enhancing freedom, prosperity, and cultural diversity. And whereas in accordance with state law, RCW 43.376, which directs the governor and state agencies to establish government-to-government relationships with Indian tribes in order to enhance and formalize working relationships with the tribes through collaboration and consultation. And whereas in accordance with state law RCW 28A.320.170, mandating the teaching of tribal history, culture, and government in common schools, which will contribute greatly to improving schools' history, curriculum, and enhance awareness for a better cultural understanding. And whereas Substitute House Bill 1356, prohibiting the inappropriate use of Native American names, symbols, or images as public school mascots, logos, or team names, was signed into law April 26, 2021, thus removing harmful stereotypes and barriers to racial equality, cultural awareness, and an equitable education. And whereas the state of Washington has designated the Friday immediately following the fourth Thursday in November as a state legal and school holiday known as Native American Heritage Day. And whereas the city of Moses Lake, Washington joins other cities and states across the nation in celebrating Native American Heritage Month, honoring the unique heritage of this continent's first people, and reaffirming the commitment to respect each tribe's sovereignty and cultural identity. Now, therefore, the Moses Lake City Council do hereby proclaim November 2023 as Native American Heritage Month. Thank you. Does the council wish to have any business brought to a future meeting? Hearing none, we can move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I got 3 things tonight. First, we'll start with Jim Richmond, who wants to introduce a new employee.
So we have a new IT system administrator, Monty Sutton. He comes to us from the Seattle area with over 20 years worth of system administration experience. He has been integrating into the system, trying to learn the way that we do things, and has already been a big asset. And you will probably see him a lot here because he's going to be helping us out with city council meetings. So,
Welcome.
Okay, moving on. Second thing is you remember here a few weeks ago, I took everybody through a tour of the animal shelter. We discussed out in the parking lot after that tour about the possibility of funding a new facility or helping fund a new facility for the Grant County Animal Outreach. I have been in discussion with Commissioner Jones a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. The county has some ARPA dollars that they are willing to donate to the cause. I believe up to $1 million in ARPA funding. We have some additional ARPA funds that could be used for the same, to give to Animal Outreach to build a facility. We've got a little over $1 million in funds that we could use. It has been dedicated to water, but we've moved $2 million of water money into the account and left a little over $1 million in ARPA funds still in the ARPA funding. So we have some funds available through ARPA that we could do. What the county is going to do is they're going to ask Animal Outreach to apply for the funds and then give them the funds. And then once they have the funds, then they can build the facility, and it wouldn't be through a city or county government. So they can build it a lot cheaper than we would be able to do it if we were going to do it ourselves. So I thought if the council was okay with that, we would ask maybe do the same process and then just give them the funds to build. So we're not involved in the building process. Additionally, the county has offered up, and I don't know if this is official or not, but has offered up the possibility of donating some property at the fairgrounds that they could build. They could build the facility there. They have an idea of possibly in the future having a veterinarian on staff, and that veterinarian could then help with Animal Outreach in doing some spay and neutering and stuff like that. And also it's in close proximity to the city's dog park. And so if they wanted to exercise the animals, or they have somebody that wants to come in and adopt and want to introduce the new dog with maybe some existing pets or kids, they could take it down to the dog park, let the dog run around, and then introduce them to the family. So location wise, I think it's a good thing. And for us, and not having to have animal control drive 10 minutes out of town to drop a dog off would be nice and convenient if it was stayed in the city. So with that, I'm looking to see what the appetite is for the council on some funds.
I have a few comments here. Councilmember Eck.
Yes, my first question is, what is expected timing for the funds from the county? Rob, what are you thinking?
Rob Jones, County Commissioner. Funding, it just has to be expended by the end of 26, Madeline. So we would be willing to go forward if you guys were. We're earmarking the $1 million. It's a yes, but it hasn't been voted on yet.
So it'll be voted on, assuming that our city council says yes.
Yep.
So this is a joint effort from the start.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent.
And we are the two main players of Animal Outreach and the two biggest contributors to their animals. So the city and the county.
Kevin and I have had a discussion on this for almost 6 years. So from my position, we need to make it happen now.
Councilmember Schwartz.
Yes, I just wanted to commend all involved. I know that cooperation sometimes between various government entities, ours included, is sometimes challenging. So this seems to be a win for everybody and all parties willing. So and we don't have to raise taxes, since somebody already did for us along the way. So what do we need to do, Kevin, specifically, just to give you the nod to go?
Give me the nod to spend up to $1 million. Then what we would do is kind of like we do with the Downtown Business Association, have them come in and apply for the funds and let us know what they're going to use it for. And then here you go. And then give them the opportunity. I'm guessing they would have to go out and get a loan to build, and then they would probably use this funds to offset the loan. Is my guess.
Do we know specifically where on the fairgrounds property this would be located?
No. It's kind of, the fairgrounds would like to have an on-site veterinarian.
Yeah.
We have that need for horse shows. When the horse goes down, it's hard to get a veterinary service, so we'd like to potentially have our own in the future on site. Which is where it kind of played all together in a veterinarian that could also work at animal outreach. Now you're funding one position or multiple positions for a multi-location. So around the substation there somewhere is what we've discussed. Like I said, no voting has been done. If that location wasn't able to work, then a couple of you could meet with me and Kevin and our project manager and find another suitable location. But as of right now, we think that's a pretty good location. We just need 2 yeses to make that happen. Our idea would be to piece it off. Kevin and I had talked about this and do a lease of the property. So they would own the building, have a long-term lease. But if they were to go defunct, we have a building that we can replace that entity with for the future.
Councilmember Fancher.
I just was curious when you made a comment about, and I like where you're thinking about getting the maximum bucks out of using funds, but they're public funds. We're not gonna have to, how do we get around using public funds and not have to pay prevailing wage?
So ARPA is a grant.
Okay.
So for us, we'll use governmental services for our ARPA side, $9 million that we had. And they will request the grant and we will award the grant. At that time, it is Grant County Animal
That's fine.
Outreach's money.
Okay.
They
Fair
will
enough.
have to turn in receipts on the money that is spent to make sure they align with what it was.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's
Fair enough.
how.
No, good. Good.
Councilmember
I like the project.
Probably going to be the goat here, but is there a policy with the animal shelter that all animals eventually find a home?
So I guess you're asking in a roundabout way, is this a kill shelter?
It's a roundabout way.
What I would say is that I'm going to answer this, but then I'm going to let Sarah speak. They are a no-kill shelter. However, there are some animals when they are medically in a bad shape, they're ill, or they're just too aggressive to adopt. I believe that they will look at euthanizing those pets, but for the most part, the dogs that are healthy, they have ways to get rid of them, or they find ways to.
Is that
Sarah, I'm going to let you add into that.
Everything that Kevin said is accurate. I guess I just go into a little more detail. So the board has adopted what would be known as a no-kill shelter. And so statistically, that's defined by a certain percentage, a very low percentage of animals would be euthanized to qualify as like technically be able to say no kill. But there are situations where we feel that the most humane thing would be to euthanize an animal for many of the reasons that Kevin mentioned. So if you have any other like specific question, I'd be happy to delve into a little deeper, but.
does the number of animals continue? Does it ever get smaller or does it only get bigger?
So I have been involved with GCAO since 2021. And so in the time that I have been there, it has only gotten bigger. And it is true that across our nation, shelters are overwhelmed. And there is kind of this outstanding question that what are we as a society going to do now that many of us are at capacity? I don't know if you've all been following what's happening in Adams County, but they're in a very dire situation as well. We have not found ourselves to be in a position where we have felt that we needed to euthanize or have the discussion about euthanizing for capacity reasons at this time.
Would that not loom on the horizon? I mean, statistically?
if something doesn't change pretty dramatically, we're going to have a serious conversation about what we do.
What could change? What could change?
Adoptions increase.
Okay,
We are constantly striving to transfer animals out, but that's difficult because most shelters are full. But you know, right now, it's a full shelter.
I like the idea. I mean, if I just see this going, it's just bigger, 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 bigger.
So the county and the city should also consider policies
Okay.
as well.
Okay,
So for example, in the city of Moses Lake, what are we're restricted to 4?
I think maybe 3.
Oh,
I think 3.
some people in this room might be over that. I'm not saying.
you know,
So 3. But in the county, there is no restriction. And so there have been times where I don't want to get into too many specifics, but there have been times where as many as one dog owner has filled our shelter with 11 animals, 16 animals coming from one individual. And so without policies in place to make it more difficult for people to get into that situation where they take on more and more animals, or they're breeding animals that they then try to sell on Stratford Road and then can't sell, those animals end up at our shelter. And so there's also spay and neuter clinics that could be set up in partnership with other agencies. It has been very difficult to attract a low-cost spay and neuter clinic to our area because the demand is very high. So, but that's another thing. So there's a variety of things that the city and the county each could put into place to help address some of this, because quite honestly, we could build a 200 kennel shelter tomorrow and put it online and it would be full. So the answer to remedying the problem is not just building a bigger shelter every few years. The answer is also going to require some look at policy. And I can share with you that there are places in the country that do have somewhat stricter rules and laws and regulations. And I came from a place where that was the case, and I don't ever recall the local animal shelter being overwhelmed. And they had easily accessible, low-cost spay and neuter, and I'm talking like $25. You drop your dog and cat off, and they're attended to that day, and you go and you pick it up. And those were very, very successful programs. So something like that has to be part of the solution, because just building a bigger shelter is not
Mayor, can I chime in for a second?
all of the solution.
And I want to just, to Dustin's comment, we are working extremely well with the county and have a great partnership. I think that if we built this facility up there and they could afford to have a veterinarian on staff at the fairgrounds, we could maybe partner with them on that cost and provide cheap spay and neuters in the city and the county to residents. And that would, I think, greatly reduce our population.
Yeah.
Just giving people, because right now you can't get into a vet. And if you can get into a vet for spay and neuter, you're going to pay a lot of money for it. And a lot of people can't afford it. Yeah.
Hundreds of dollars for spay and neuter. And every animal that comes into our shelter, once we legally are then responsible for their care, and no one has stepped forward to claim the animal after a certain period of time, we do have them vaccinated, spayed and neutered.
I think those are, the spay and neuter is a terrific idea.
Yeah.
I think sometimes though, we're not willing to make hard decisions. And if we had such regulations that we would foist that on the pet owner, and we'd still end up with bags of cats and rocks in the bed, in the lake, rather than maybe more humanely euthanizing something. But I mean, we got to come to grips with just some hard things that make it sad. and it touches on our heartstrings. And I've always had a dog, and I've got an 18-year-old dog now that uses my house for a bathroom, and I'm trying to decide what to do with it. And it will be a real tearful, hard situation, but somewhere we have to be willing to make hard decisions, and sometimes they're not the ones that make us happy.
Well, I tell you, my heart will be with you when you have to make that decision,
Mhm.
for sure. I've went through that recently. And when you are ready for another dog, I have about 4 for you. Wait, what's the limit? 3. I have 3 for you. I will hand pick them.
Yeah.
So,
Deputy Mayor Martinez, we have a few more comments here.
okay.
I'll be a goat with David a little bit, and it seems like we're aligning a lot more lately. I don't know what's going on there, but anyway. Thank you for bringing up the whole, if you could build for 200, you'd fill it right away, because that's my concern. Not to say that we don't need one. I am complete support of a new shelter or facility for the county, for the city. But that is my concern. We do need policy to change that so that it's not instantly full once it's built. So I appreciate your comments on that. I do have a clarification with the city and the county. It's $1 million matching grant.
Well, I'm just throwing out to the council what your appetite is as far as what you would like to put out there for this project. The county's offering up to $1 million through them. We have the funds if we wanted to match that, but I'm not saying you have to match it. I'm just asking what you guys would like to.
So
put
we
in.
don't have to match it, Rob?
We are going to match what you are willing to do.
Okay,
Is kind of what our plan is,
okay.
because it's kind of a 50-50 thing right now.
Uh,
Now, it does affect the whole county. The city of Warden shipped their dogs to Adams County. Adams County is not working out for them anymore, so they've been holding them. They're getting more aggressive. And now they have to explore the next option, as you guys have mentioned. So it's countywide, it's every city in the county. But step 1 is a facility to where we can start running these programs.
correct. So regarding spending ARPA money, is it just facilities or, structures, or is it also to run the business?
Not to run the business, no.
It's not
And we have a contract with Grant County Animal Outreach. We pay, just like the county, we pay $100,000 a year for operations. And so this would be separate. This is just for the facility itself.
And
Do you
I
have-
also,
Sorry.
you should go ahead.
Do you have any idea what a facility would cost? Because we're legally going around having to use government and letting the private sector build this building. So $2 million sounds like a whole lot of money to me if it's somebody else building it, but I have no idea.
So a couple comments. One, I don't think that the council or even the commissioners can think that building a shelter is addressing the population issues. So just, to make sure that that's clear. In the absence of policy and accessible spay and neuter, we're going to continue to have the issues that we're having. And it's, and outside of an education piece, it's not really within the purview of Grant County Animal Outreach. In fact, it's not in the purview of Grant County Animal Outreach to create policy. That is something that the council and the commissioners would have to do. As far as a facility itself, I don't. What I am aware of is that, or what I remember is that Adams County spent about a little over $1 million to build their facility. And as I understand it, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but as I understand it, it was designed to house about 60 animals, and they're running over 100 right now. which is the situation in many places. What I have had in mind is probably a 100 kennel facility. But it didn't feel like it would be a worthwhile investment of time to plot out a strategy to build something if I didn't know what the funding sources were going to be. So I've kind of focused on the current board is focused on stabilizing Grant County Animal Outreach, making sure that we have sufficient employees and addressing operational issues. And that has felt like where I needed to invest my time. Now that there's the possibility of money on the table, then I would turn my attention to answering those questions of like, what can we get? If each of you gave $1 million, what would that look like? If we only had $1 million, what would that look like? But building costs are pretty high. I think y'all probably know that, some of you in this room.
Thank you.
And if I can add, I believe there might be a contractor or two in the community that would be willing to help them build the facility at a reduced cost, just to give back to the community. Is that a fair statement?
A very fair statement.
More bang for our buck.
We talked at the shelter about fundraising, and in your current state, it's been hard just because of how down the facility is. So would this help?
Yeah. So what I have in mind for Grant County Animal Outreach, once we are in a better facility, is I would like to do more outreach to surrounding communities, even outside of Grant County, in terms of trying to attract potential adopters. So for example, one of our board members leveraged social media in a way that a couple in Oregon came to our facility recently and adopted 3 puppies because of the type of dog that they were. And because that information reached them in Oregon, they made the choice to come to Grant County Animal Outreach to do that adoption. And so we could do more of that if we had the proper facilities. But as you saw, it's really hard to even go in and have a proper space to meet and greet an animal. If you just show up and say, I want a dog, it's like, well, okay, what, it's just hard to give a person a proper space to introduce them to dogs.
My other question would be your organization's appetite on helping suggest or recommend policy that maybe you have seen in other jurisdictions or have heard of that might help us to formulate what would work here?
So I think that there's a lot of expertise, not just in GCAO, but in other rescues within the county. And I think that it would be really worthwhile, and from my point of view, that the leadership of each of those entities gets together and begins to map some of that strategy out.
Because we're not experts in that matter, so we.
Yeah,
I
don't claim to be an expert. Listen, I volunteered to walk dogs like in 2021. I did not see myself in this position these years later, but as you saw, it's an urgent situation, and I got involved because I really love dogs.
And those have been, those meetings with those other organizations to create that have been going on. We've probably had 5 of them. Obviously, the county is the county. So you have groups in Quincy, Freda, and South County that would also like to be involved in this. But number one step is to have a place to take them. Our contract is with GCAO for vicious dogs, aggressive dogs that have to be removed and held. So that's why we are going that direction to begin with.
Yeah.
Councilmember Eck, final comments? Okay.
And Mayor, I will add one more thing, and that is, this is about 3 Saturdays ago, my wife and I were driving down Stratford and saw a lineup of, I don't know, 6, 8 cars that were selling puppies. Of course, as we're driving down the road, my wife's got her window down yelling, "Spay and neuter your dogs." Anyway, but while we were driving, it prompted the question. And so we started looking up online on our phones, trying to find ordinances that prohibited selling dogs in the city. And we couldn't find anything that would prohibit animals being sold on private property. So if they're on private property, there was nothing that we could find that would prohibit that. So it might be a stretch to try to find something for that, but that doesn't mean we can't continue to research it. So
He's looking for some direction. If the council would you like a motion?
that would be great.
Anybody would like to make a motion?
Up to a what amount?
$1 million.
Okay, we have a motion to fund the animal shelter for $1 million.
Up to.
Up to $1 million. Okay,
Second,
you second?
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Are there any stipulations? I don't want to get past the it's full, we have to do something. And we have to do something. And that's somewhere, it seems like the as like I said, I always had dogs my life. My best friends were dogs. Maybe that's good or bad, but they were. But somewhere we can't say this. And when it's full, we build a bigger one. And those are hard decisions. But I mean, I would like to see something that says, if it gets to that point, we have to make hard decisions and we make them. But we don't just indefinitely keep getting bigger and bigger, bigger. So that would be my reservation about voting yes with no stipulation.
Yeah, and I can answer some of that, and that is this is just to build the facility. We have a contract with them. It's $100,000 a year to pay for operational costs. If the shelter were to get to the point where they were at capacity or over capacity and they needed more money, at that point we could say, we're funding operations at $100,000. We're not going to give you any more money. You've got to find a way to reduce the animals. So there's a way for us to be able to do that with our yearly operational contract. If that makes sense.
I would say that that would be the more appropriate way to approach that. Is through the operating contract, but I also, it's really a double-edged sword, right? So when euthanasia is part of the strategy for addressing capacity, in the absence of low-cost spay and neuter policies within the city that make it more difficult for people to just show up on Stratford Road and sell puppies out of the back of their pickup. In the absence of that, it really does hamper our other fundraising abilities when you are a kill shelter. There are lots of individuals who will not contribute, and it also makes it harder to find volunteers. So this community has, in the past, not since I have lived here, but in the past has wrestled with that, with GCAO being a kill shelter. And there was a strong reaction from the community related to that. And so what I hope is that we would work together to try to come up with comprehensive policy before, it was mandated in contract or something like that. See if there are ways that we can address overpopulation.
This is still pending the application. We're gonna accept a grant application from them. Are they gonna fill out?
Yeah, I would say that what I may do is get with Rob and find out what the process is that the county uses for this and see if we can adopt something similar to that. If the council is willing to allocate the funds, then we'll find a way to process it.
Okay.
And I'll also certainly be happy to provide you with ongoing updates and plans and, what I learn. when I meet with a builder and architects and all of that.
Sarah and I keep in pretty good contact. I imagine we'll have weekly updates between the two of us.
Councilmember Fancher.
All I would say is, and I think this is where everybody's going, and we're not putting it into the motion or whatever, maybe we need to, that in concurrence with building the new facility, that we need to make some concerted efforts working with the county and the city on new policies and towards animal control. I mean, I sat here, thought we had a maximum of 2. I've been complaining about my neighbors all along. They only have 3, but
Yeah, three's the limit.
I can't handle 1. So
We do have a motion and a second on the table. There's no further discussion. I call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I have one more thing, and that is council members for the fire committee. So we have started the discussion with the gal that we are going to contract with on the fire regionalization piece. I've had a couple conversations with her. We have a meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, Zoom meeting that is going to be staff involved to talk about how we set up the committee, the financial information they're going to need from the city. I also have a meeting set up with Grant County Fire District 5 on Thursday to talk about the exact same stuff. But what I'm looking for is we will have some county commissioner, not county commissioner, fire district commissioner representation and also city council representation. I wanted to open that up to, does anybody want to do it, or do we just use the public safety committee that we currently have to do it? So I'm throwing that out there for your decision on who you would like to sit on that. I don't exactly know how many council members yet. I will find that out on Tuesday when I talk to Karen again. But I'm just looking for names of people that would be interested in sitting on that.
I'm sure we're limited to quorum and whatnot. It'd be
Yeah,
very difficult.
I'm guessing the most you could have is 4. My only, sorry, 3. My only concern is fire district commissioners only have 3 commissioners. So I'm guessing they're only going to be able to issue 1. And I don't want it to look like we're overloading with city staff and not the fire district. So that's why I said, if you will let me know who, and then maybe prioritize 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then when I find out how many, I can let that person or those people know.
Deputy Mayor Martinez.
Now that you said that, because I was going to say it would make sense for Public Safety Committee members to be involved with that, because that's what we talk about. So, but you're limiting it to maybe 1.
1 to 3, I'm guessing once I talk to Karen, and I will say this, whoever or whomever sit on this committee, there will be more meetings than just 1 a month with the public safety. I mean, you could be at 2 meetings a month with maybe a little homework in between. So just FYI.
And just to remind the council and public, Council Member Skog, Councilmember Madewell, and I sit on that Public Safety Committee.
I want to add one more thing too, and that is this process could last up to 18 months to 2 years. So I would like to keep somebody on the people on there that will commit to that amount of time, because I don't want to have somebody leave and then somebody come on midstream and have to try to catch up. So anyway, that's my.
Just let them know if you'd like to volunteer for that committee, and then we'll figure out how far.
I see Dustin and Deanna and Mark and Judy. Okay, so Mayor, give me the priority on who you would like at the top of the list.
Okay. Is that all you have for?
Yeah,
You want?
of those 4, who do I start with and then go down from? That's your decision to make, not mine.
Okay, Mark volunteered to be number 4. I'll probably put Deanna first.
Okay.
Okay, so then Judy, number 2, Dustin 3.
Okay. That's what I needed. Thank you.
Thanks for helping with that. Okay. We have a couple public hearings to hold. We'll start with the property tax levy resolution 3957. Turn this over to Madeline Prentice for a presentation.
Good evening, council members. In your packet, you have a staff report and a resolution to adopt the property tax levy, as has been presented to you at the two budget workshops that we've had. What we're asking for is to levy the 1% allowed by law, as well as to use bank capacity of $375,000 for the next year for 2024. And that would give us a levy amount of $9,372,176. So if you have any questions, but the information has been provided in your packet previously.
We do need to hold a hearing. So we can open the public hearing. If any members of the public would like to speak on this matter, step up to the mic, state your name and city of residence. Or if there's anybody online that would like to speak. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and open council discussion and questions. If there is none, we'll accept the motion to adopt resolution. You have a question? Go ahead.
Madeline, the 1%, that's going to change our basic tax in Moses Lake from 8.4 to 9.4.
No, this is property tax. Property, that would be sales tax is what you're referring to. This is the property tax.
And that's an increase of that. What is the present tax right now?
The present tax right now, the levy that we assessed last year was $8,735,000
As a percentage.
As a percentage. The increase is, where's my figure here? The increase is
Well, that's the 1% increase.
that 1%, that's the allowable by law.
Okay, and where are we at right now? What
Yes.
rate of tax, property tax? Or is there no property?
So this is a tax that's already being collected. We just have the option of taking an additional up to 1% each year of that tax that's already being collected at the county level. The tax rate to our citizens does not change.
Right.
If we don't take that additional 1%, it goes back into the county pool for redistribution to somebody else who wants it.
Well, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Councilmember Madewell?
I'm good. The question was answered. Thanks.
Okay. Looking for a motion to adopt resolution 3957.
So moved.
Second.
Hey, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 2, the 2024 budget ordinance, first presentation, and we'll have a presentation by Madeline Prentice again.
And so again, you have the budget packet for you. This is the budget that was presented at the second workshop that was held last week. We went back through and just really finalized the numbers. We did decrease the general fund slightly, just going back through and looking at all of the information again. And we did have one change to stormwater. So it did increase it by $70,000 due to a software package that they had received a grant for. They had the grant funding, but they did not put the expense in. So that went up slightly as well. But overall, your total budget, expenditure budget is 105.5 million. Of that, 37.4 is the general fund. And the revenues are a total of 90. Where is it? I have the number in front of me right now. $97.6 million total for revenues. So we'll open it for any questions that you have.
We do need to hold a public hearing for this matter. This again is the first presentation. We'll have another opportunity to speak on the matter before approving the budget. So if anybody would like to speak on this matter, just step up to the mic, name and city of residence. Or if anybody online. Hearing none, the public hearing will now be closed and council discussion or questions. Councilmember Fancher.
So I would just make the same comment we talked about at the study session, that when we started talking about labor and we know that the wages are driving up as they are everywhere in the county. Well, probably everywhere. But I am still a little concerned about the growth rate of our employee pool versus the growth rate of just the population that we're serving. So I hope we really focus on not growing our city employment pool faster than our city.
Well, and as I mentioned to the council at the last budget meeting, we are not adding any new employees this year. So.
Any other discussion or questions? Councilmember Schwartz.
Yes, on page 18. Would you please just provide a little explainer on the far right column?
The projected fund balance. So what that is basically we're estimating, we have an estimated beginning fund balance for 2024. And that's basically taking where we are currently with our forecasted revenues and expenditures through the rest of this year. And it's taking the information that we presented in the budget, revenues less expenditures. So the beginning fund balance plus revenues less expenditures to get to that ending fund balance at 12/31/24.
Okay, you want to hear a dumb guy explain it?
Okay.
Does that, I guess the way I understand it is that's the bottom line, 38, almost $39 million is what we should have in the bank account on January 1 of 2025.
Yes.
All right. And what is generally the methodology as far as how much we keep and those sorts of things?
We do have policy that talks about the reserves that is required for each of the funds. The general fund current policy states that we should have 16.7% of the operational budget for the general fund in reserve, which we do meet that when we take out the one-time non-recurring expenses. Of 6.6. We will meet that at the end of the year projected. The other thing to consider is that our revenues are definitely conservative. And so we anticipate that the revenues will come in stronger and expenditures hopefully will be less.
Okay.
But and the policy currently, as I said, is 16.7%. We have recommended or suggested that we will be bringing you back some changes to those policies to give it a range of reserve that we'd like to keep. And if we can build that reserve up, then my next step will be to come to council to say, can we move some of that money, the excess, to our rainy day fund?
Okay.
Councilmember Scott.
Madeline, just to be clear, the beginning balance at the beginning of 2024 is the ending balance of 2023, which is 46,643,000. And then we're going to end up with $38,800,000. So somewhere along the line, doing the math, what that's about $7 million.
Right.
That we're planning on budgeting for more than what we're going to revenue receive.
What we're suggesting with this budget is that we will be using some of the reserves that we currently have.
And potentially some of that $7 million is going to come back in the form of increased revenues that you conservatively projected those, and they probably could be more than that.
Correct.
And was that number at one time $1 million or $2 million? That potentially, if things went well.
Well, sales tax revenue is definitely considerably higher than what we have estimated even now.
Okay.
And so we anticipate that that will continue to increase next year. Again, we're conservative in our estimate for the revenue because we don't want to overshoot and have something happen that makes that number not come in where we're anticipating.
I don't recall, were there some big drivers that aren't going to happen in 2024, that we don't end up going back to the piggy bank again? That happened, that are going to happen in this upcoming budget?
We shouldn't, we've moved everything. We talked about this just yesterday. We've moved everything forward into 24 that is currently in 23, so that we shouldn't have any surprises next year with forgetting to carry
Right.
projects forward. So we
We
shouldn't
did-
have some of those big ticket items that we
Right.
had this year.
We did a really deep dive this year into all of the projects and what is left that will potentially be carried forward. And so that's already incorporated into the budget. So we don't anticipate having the budget amendments that we've had this year. Because we have done a really good job this year, really scrubbing those projects and talking to the departments to say, what do you have that is currently on the budget for this year that you're not going to expend this year, that you're still working on and you will be working on to 2024. And we've carried that forward into the 2024 budget.
Councilmember Schwartz.
Yeah, on the list of capital projects, like, are some of those explicitly included in the budget?
The list of capital projects, yes, that are on this worksheet, yes.
So I mean, there's this list here, which is the in totality, which is $72 million.
You're looking at an older version. That's been reduced down to, for 2024, it's 12 million.
The page is 24. So the page is provided in the packet.
Yeah, for if you look at the 2024 amount, it's 12 million.
Oh, so what you're saying is that 60 some million is carryover?
That would be carried forward into future years, 25 and beyond.
I vaguely remember this now. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Again, this is the first presentation. We will hear this again in our next meeting. Yeah, questions are good. Hearing none, we can move on to item number 3, the consent agenda. All items listed are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion.
So moved.
We have a motion. Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I abstain due to many conflicts.
Note that Councilmember Fancher abstains from the votes. Motion passes. Item number 4, the fire impact fee ordinance 3037 and resolution 3956. Turn this over to Brett Bastian, our fire chief.
Good evening. So I've had a couple of questions, some from council and some that I've heard. I mean, we've talked about the impact fee issues going all the way back to 2016. So I'll try and be brief on some of this. One thing that I did want to touch base on is apparently one media outlet had listed the fee schedule as the old fee schedule that we originally did in 2016. This one, the one that you have in your package, is the one that you're considering tonight. So I just want to clarify that. I've also heard concerns that this is a recurring tax. This is not a tax. It is a one-time fee. Fire impact fees are one-time fees. They don't recur. They're to be used specifically for fire stations. They will eliminate the monetary component review for SEPA reviews and will speed up the review process by eliminating that, because we can't do both. We have to choose one or the other if we're going to do them. The new station location, I've been asked where that needs to go. We've identified 13 lots as potential locations, specifically in the Patton and SR17 area. We've identified 13 1-acre lots, and that's about what we need for a station, is about an acre. we could immediately start pursuing land purchase with the approval of the council. And there is money in the mitigation fund right now to pursue that. We have identified 13 parcels basically between SR 17 and Westover Drive along Patton, all in a good location. There are some other locations in that north area that could also be viable locations, but where it really needs to go is as close to Patton and 17 or Patton and Patton and Aspie Boulevard as possible. That's where our increasing call volume is at, and that's where it really needs to go. Impact fees can only be used to purchase land, build the station, or pay the debt service. So if we were to finance or do like a local fund, you can pay the debt service with impact fees. And one of the questions that came up at the last council meeting is, can those funds follow the fire department to a fire district or an RFA? And they can through the use of an interlocal agreement. I do know of at least one city in Washington state, and I believe it's Covington, is doing a pass-through on fire impact fees to the Puget Sound Fire Authority. So there is a way to do that. And then just to kind of wade in on a little bit of what has changed over the years. Everybody knows last time we built a fire station was 27 years ago. When we built that station, your assessed valuation for the city was about 609 million. The current assessed valuation is 3.6 billion. So we are protecting a lot more with not really a lot more infrastructure. We don't have any more infrastructure. We had two stations when that 6 million or 609 million was quoted, and now we're at 3.6 billion. When Station 1 opened, the population of the city was 14,414. That's gone up by about 67% to today's population. Our call volume has gone up 880%, and staffing has gone up 320% in that same time frame. In 1999, the Wheeler Road annexations were started and increased the response area of Station 1 by 3.3 square miles overnight. Station 1 originally responded to 6 square miles. It's now responding to over 14 square miles. So in the business, we call that where we're out of whack as far as being able to provide good service. And one thing that I would point out here is that if we build that station out in the north end, it does things for the north end, definitely. It gives us response capability in that north end, but it also takes having an engine that might be out at SGL, which is an 11-minute response from Station 1, and that engine being tied up out there. If we have an engine already out at Station 3 that goes on a call, it frees up that engine. So if we had a call out in the Wheeler corridor, which is 5-minute response from Station 1, if engine 1 is out at SGL, that's now a 17-minute response going back to REC or somewhere in there. So it does have some benefit to building a station there and deploying our forces more evenly around the city rather than concentrated in Station 1. And then I'll just talk about a little bit about impacts. There definitely have been some impacts with recent development, and I'll just point out 4 of our multifamily housing. So we have 4 apartment complexes that have gone in over the last 10 years. Those apartment complexes, just 4 complexes, account for 2.5% of our total call volume and 6% of our call volume in residential structures. So there are impacts. We have continued to have impacts with new development, and that's kind of where we're at. So you know all my arguments, you know my positions. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. That's kind of where we're at.
We do have a citizen that would like to comment on the matter. Larry Engel, step up to the mic. Again, name and city of residence for the record.
Thank you. For the record, I am Larry Angel. I'm a planner with Columbia Northwest Engineering, 249 North Elder Street, Moses Lake, Washington. I'm here this evening at the request of Mr. Pete Olson of Olson Homes LLC. And Mr. Olson is the developer of the Barrington subdivisions in the Knowles Vista area. In fact, you have on your consent agenda tonight the acceptance of phase 1 utilities for that particular subdivision. The issue I'd like to talk about this evening is neither pro nor con, but it's circumstantially related to Mr. Olson's subdivision, the Barrington 5 subdivision. The Barrington 5 subdivision was approved with a condition of approval, I believe, in July of this year. And basically that was the first or one of the first impositions of the SEPA fire mitigation fee. And since that SEPA fire mitigation fee was imposed as a condition of preliminary plat approval, we have gone through a number of changes at the city of Moses Lake. The SEPA fire mitigation fee has now evolved into a fire impact fee. And it's our understanding that in that process, the city has examined and updated the comprehensive plan capital facilities estimate element, and has also perhaps modified or changed, revised its methodology for the computation of the impact fee that we're discussing here this evening. It has been very challenging for Mr. Olson to deal with the imposition of the SEPA impact fee. At the time, it was a surprise. It was unanticipated and came up virtually at the last minute with the approval of the preliminary plat. And as I alluded to in the ensuing period of time since the approval of the preliminary plat, we've gotten to the point where we're at this evening where you're considering the adoption of a fire impact fee. Mr. Olson is respectfully requesting the opportunity to ensure that the SEPA impact fee that was imposed as a condition of approval of the preliminary plat is consistent with the fire impact fee that you're considering for adoption. He would like to ensure that the imposition of the fees on his subdivision, Barrington 5, is fair and equitable and consistent with whatever course of action you decide to take in your consideration and perhaps adoption of the fire impact fee. And what that might entail would be some further discussion with city staff or with city council. I don't know. We defer to the city for advice on how to address that. Where we're at the moment is that we in our shop are currently working on preparing the final plat for phase 1 of the Barrington 5 subdivision. So that will be coming into the city very shortly. And we would like to kind of wrap up the loose ends that might be revolving around the issue of SEPA impact fees, fire impact fees, mitigation fees that perhaps pertain to the Barrington 5 subdivision. And I believe that the Barrington 5 subdivision may have been one of 2 subdivisions that the SEPA impact fee was imposed upon. And then we've evolved to the point we're at, which now. And again, we're neither pro nor con. We understand the necessity for impact fees, and that's not our issue this evening. Mr. Olson has just requested that he wants to ensure that whatever is imposed upon him as a fee in this regard is fair and equitable and consistent with whatever course of action you take. And with that, I would answer any questions that you might have.
Questions or comments from the council? Councilmember Schwartz.
Yeah, so where, would you mind staying up here, Mr. Angel? Thank you for coming tonight. Where in the application process is your client or your firm?
At the present time, the preliminary plat was approved in July. I think it was July. Again, you have accepted by resolution this evening on the consent agenda the utility improvements that are associated with that. So the next step in our process is to prepare, which we're currently in the process of doing, the final plat application to the city for phase one.
Okay. I get the conundrum and sorry, so is the time started ticking on this process?
Well, this would be the appropriate time to address the issue from Mr. Olson's perspective to ensure that the fees are appropriate.
I think if I'm understanding the situation correctly, if Mr. Olson were to choose between what may be the SEPA mitigation fee and what with a proposed impact fee would be, that one would be desirable over the other.
Well,
the impact fee may be more desirable.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that as his representative this evening, but I think you're hitting the nail on the head because we simply don't know at the moment. Mr. Olson is principally interested in fairness and equity, and there is a history to the SEPA impact fee that was imposed on this subdivision. And I believe you're all aware of that history. And so again, we're not pro, we're not con, we're simply asking for assurances to Mr. Olson that he would be paying his fair and equitable assessment depending upon the course of action that you decide to undertake.
I think I understand what you're asking for. Okay. And he's aware that if, for instance, he had picked up the media that erroneously published the rates, that they're significantly lower than where we were in 2016 for some of these projects.
Well, we don't know what the calculations are now. We don't know what the fee would be under the new rules that would result from this. So I understand what you're saying, and I can't give you an answer this evening because less is always better than more. And I'll leave it at that this evening.
I tend to agree. All right. I think I understand what you're saying. Thank you.
Councilmember Fancher.
Thank you.
So the question is, because there's more than one project out there that has been approved with mitigation fees. So, and I know exactly where it's at on this as far as Larry, sometimes you got to just speak like we do. Okay. But so there you are. So this project was approved. There was a mitigation fee attached to this project, correct?
Yes, so with this one, it was a part of the SEPA
Yep.
regulation that was
Yep.
issued. And with,
So the final plat is not approved. If we were to adopt fire impact fees tonight, does the mitigation fees, are they still in place?
Yes, so
Yeah.
SEPA requires that analysis be conducted after we receive a complete application. So
Right.
that would have been for the preliminary plat.
Mhm.
So whatever conditions attached
Right.
to the preliminary plat are what travel forward with the preliminary plat.
Correct.
So the impact fee process is totally different.
Mhm.
And under SEPA, not just the applicant has standing to challenge the SEPA, the proposed SEPA mitigation measures, but any member of the public who has standing also does. So to go back and change that retroactively would have some legal repercussions. We would have to reopen things, and that's not a possible process given where we're at this stage.
If I may, can I just comment in that regard? I understand fully what Ms. Kennison is stating. But we are all aware of the history of this process since July. It simply was not possible circumstantially for Mr. Olson to satisfactorily resolve, from his perspective, this issue. Basically, and I'm using my own words here, I'm going to be very cautious, but I'm going to be very blunt. There's a phrase, our way or the highway. And I'll just leave it at that. We're not pro or con in regard to impact fees. Our only issue, Mr. Olson's only issue, is equity and fairness. And I believe that there are only one or two subdivisions to which the imposition of SEPA mitigation fees were imposed upon. And that was at the very beginning of the process that's culminating with your discussions this evening. So I understand the legalities, I do. But I guess I'm asking you to address, for lack of a better word, the morality and the rightness of the process. And again, Mr. Olson is not asking for special favors. He's asking for fairness and equity. And I'll just leave it at that this evening.
Councilmember Scog.
I think our intent is to make this process easier and getting away from the whole SEPA process. And we can't get rid of the SEPA application in this particular application. Has there been a fee assessed at that SEPA?
Yeah, so as I said, the SEPA process is a state mandated process that the city has adopted as it's been required to. So in that process, once we get that complete application, we send out the notice to agencies and the public saying, hey, if you want to comment on this development, now is your chance to comment on these impacts. And so one of the comments was from the fire department, which was requesting impact fees based upon the impacts that this particular project was going to have. Once those comments are all received, staff, the lead agency, which is our staff, compiles the SEPA document, which is either a determination of non-significance, a determination of non-significance with mitigating measures, or a determination of significance, which then results in an environmental impact study. In this case, it was an MDNS, a mitigated determination of non-significance, meaning the project doesn't have significant impacts that can't otherwise be mitigated based on these conditions. One of those mitigating conditions was the requirement that they pay the mitigation fee that the fire department was asking for. Once that document is issued, that starts a legal appeals period filing period that either the applicant can appeal or any party with standing can appeal, or the city could appeal. That time period is a clock that's mandated under state law. It has run and no appeal was filed. So we are legally complete through that process. There's no other legal way to reopen that process.
Okay, so are we talking about the dollar amount of a SEPA impact?
That was one of the mitigating measures that was imposed based upon the fire department comments.
Can that number equal a proposed impact fee?
No, that number was established at the time the mitigating measure was established. So that was part of the SEPA document.
Is that greater than a proposed
That
impact
I
fee?
that I don't know.
Brett?
that's when we use opportunities to put methodology on people. You have to look at every project and every development and because you can't use a formula like you can in fire protection. For that element, we know that there was 43%. There would have been 43% of all life. So we look at what that potential impact is over the life of the station for 50 years and come up with it. So station 3, if we go to station 3 where that would be this project's first station. So that project, Erickson's Point, would get direct benefit from building the station.
It seems like Mr. Olson is worried about or something.
Well, and again,
Can we just
I-
make sure those can,
Yeah,
does anybody done the math and said,
well,
SEPA
and-
costs this much and those cost that much and that's not fair?
Well, the issue for Mr. Olson and just for the record, I concur with everything that Mr. Bastian and Ms. Kennison has said this evening. I'm very much aware procedurally of what the SEPA requirements are, what the SEPA laws are. I was SEPA administrator in multiple public jurisdictions for 25 years. So I do know, and I do appreciate, and I understand the comments that have been this evening. And again, circumstantially, that was not an option that was available to the developer in this circumstance. And again, I allude to the history that has transpired in Moses Lake over the course of the last year. And just to reiterate, the only thing that Mr. Olson is interested in is fair and equitable. And the imposition of the fee that was imposed initially under the SEPA mitigation was $126,000. Now, would it be more or would it be less under the ordinance that you're proposing to adopt or may adopt? I don't know. Mr. Olson doesn't know. It appears that no one knows because it hasn't been discussed. And Mr. Olson is a responsible developer. He's done multiple subdivisions in Moses Lake. He always pays his fair share. But he doesn't want to be singled out, made an exception of, and he's more than willing to pay what is fair and equitable in terms of the assessments and fees for his subdivision. But right now, we don't know. We have no idea. And what we're simply asking is the opportunity to perhaps address and perhaps revise or correct a past action. I don't know. And I agree with you that legally that may not be what can be accomplished through this process. But we believe Mr. Olson feels that it's important to put this issue that I'm sharing with you this evening on the record and that you be aware of it. And we'll just leave it at that for this evening.
Councilmember Schwartz?
Yeah, so let me just make sure I understand this correctly. Is the SEPA process was undergone by you and your client because of the size of the project. So the SEPA is attached to the preliminary plat or
yes,
correct?
Well, and Ms. Kennison or the community development director, correct me if I err in this regard, but yes, SEPA is triggered by the size of the project.
Right.
And SEPA is a way of comprehensively addressing any possible environmental impacts that may result.
Yeah, sure. So when we have fire impact fees for a residential development, isn't the fee actually set up by per residence? And so when is that fee collected and from whom? Or, I mean, is that fee collected on each building permit then?
Mhm. Yeah, in the ordinance you have before you this evening, there's a specific provision, and again, please correct me if I err, that the fee is collectible upon the issuance of a building permit.
Right, so let's say we adopt these tonight, so not only has Mr. Olson paid the $126,000 because of SEPA, anytime going forward now that Mr. Olson pulls a building permit, then the fire impact fee would be added to the building permit, is that correct?
No, well, I can let.
Yeah, no. So we have a very strong vesting statute in Washington. So you are vested under the laws and ordinances at the time you submit a complete application and request your building permit. So this ordinance would not be applicable to this.
So the
development.
discrepancy really is between what we all think is going to be a significantly lower fee than the $126,000 just based on the methodology that.
It's
is
based on
before
part of
us. I mean,
methodology. Yes, and one of the discussions we've had, and again, I defer to city staff, it's our understanding in the discussions that Mr. Olson and Mr. Green from Columbia Northwest Engineering had with city staff, that the $126,000 that was originally imposed would be prorated per phase, and that the proportionate share that went with each phase would be paid when each building permit was pulled or issued. That's our understanding, but I don't know that that has ever been codified. And it appears to be proposed in the current iteration of the ordinance that's before you. But we want to make clear that, or Mr. Olson wants to have a clear understanding of how much is due and payable, when it's due and payable, and it's our understanding, his understanding, that those payments would be made per lot, per residence, when the building permit application is pulled. And I don't know that we have that understanding this evening from Mr. Olson's perspective.
Councilmember Fancher.
Part of my question was already answered. I was making sure we weren't double dipping. That was one concern I had for sure. And I guess, does the SEPA process spell out how that is paid?
This was a while, I apologize. This was a few months ago, and I believe there were discussions on how to pay it, but I'd have to go back and find the actual document. I believe we discussed it with the city attorney that we could allow it to be paid per phase. I remember the question being asked about being able to pay it per lot, but it was really an imposition on the developer themselves, not to be done at time of building permit. The difference going forward would be, if you adopted the fire impact fees tonight, we would no longer assess that through SEPA, and it would just come at time of building permit for each of the lots moving forward in an approved subdivision. Once this is potentially adopted.
Yeah. And I wouldn't expect any response or answer this evening, but again, we just want to put Mr. Olson's concerns on the table, make you aware of them. And if there's an opportunity for any future discussion to dot the i's, cross the t's, so that we all have a clear understanding as we move forward, what the requirements are, what the methodologies are, what the fees are, and when they'll be paid, that is all we're really asking for.
Okay, thank you for your comment. There are some more questions. We are considering an ordinance, so wouldn't want you to stand up there then the entire time. So we appreciate your comments and concerns.
Thank you.
Councilmember Scog.
Larry, I just want you to make sure that you get back to Mr. Olson, that we would have a very, very concerted effort to be fair, equitable, and that he would recognize that. And I appreciate you bringing up a situation like this, so we can be aware of those, make changes. But there's a real strong commitment to not having these subjective situations going on, but here's what needs to be done. Here's how it's going to be done, and make that real clear. And we will work really hard to make sure those kind of things happen.
Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Martinez.
So just to be clear, they're not also getting charged fire impact fees. They're stuck with SEPA. Can community development or whoever's working on this project with them give them some clear definitive communication as to when payments will be made and that sort of thing?
I was able to look in my email. And there was, just going back in history, they actually did appeal the SEPA originally. And then we worked with them and then they submitted a letter withdrawing their appeal on April 4th, subject to some conditions. The agreement, it states right here in the letter to the hearing examiner from the president of Columbia Northwest Engineering, submitted on behalf of the Wilson Homes. It states the agreement includes that the application of fire mitigation fees to be paid with each phase of the subdivision, and that no further fire mitigations will be required, such as parking on one side of the street, fire resistant construction, or sprinklers be required within each home. The city informed the developer that the following statement will be forwarded to your office. In compliance with the SEPA mitigated determination of non-significance dated February 2nd, 2023, payment of the fire mitigation fee shall be remitted with each phase of the subdivision. First installment and subsequent installments shall be proportional to the number of lots, and remittance of payment shall be prior to final plat submittal. So in that event, this one doesn't state in here, well, the exact amount, but I don't remember the amount of the number of lots in each phase. We take the number of lots, the total amount divided by the number of lots. And then, if there's a third of the lots are in the first phase, they pay a third of the fee when they submit for the final plat submittal. And that's the stage they're at this point in time.
I apologize. I have very poor hearing aid, and I didn't hear anything that she just said. The only comment that I wanted to make was in this regard that, yes, we understand that there's an appeal process available in SEPA. Circumstantially, is it possible for a developer to avail themselves of an appeal process? Oftentimes, circumstantially, no, it's not. Developers have a very tight development window of opportunity. They have debt service on property. They have construction loans. They have financing loans. They have a business plan. They have bankers and a schedule for development and payment of loans, mortgages, et cetera, et cetera. A delay of 1 month, 2 months, 3 months in an appeal process, the SEPA appeal, you could be looking at, with further appeals higher up the food chain, you could be looking at the appeal process being anywhere from 3 months to several years. And for many developers, yes, there is the appeal process available legally. Many developers, the appeal process circumstantially is prohibitive. They can't afford to risk their business, their homes, losing their shirts on prevailing in an appeal process. And yes, Mr. Olson did file an appeal, and he later withdrew that appeal. I'm sure based upon the advice of his financial advisors that circumstantially it was not possible for him not to lose his shirt if the appeal process took an inordinate amount of time and ultimately perhaps resulted in the appeal being denied. So these factors all go into the construction and development process. And yes, SEPA mitigation agreements technically are voluntary. And yes, there is an appeal process. But when you look at all the financial constraints imposed upon a developer, especially a small developer, Mr. Olson is not a big developer in the scheme of things. When you look at the risks, the financial risks, the appeal process simply is not circumstantially available from a financial perspective, given the risks and the possibility of financial ruin that goes with those risks. And, you know, again, I say I spent 25 years on the public sector side. I spent 20 years on the private sector side. I've seen just about every permutation of this scenario develop over those years, and I've personally dealt with those. And I don't disagree with anything that city staff has said this evening, but I want you to be aware of the dilemma that developers face, especially when, and I'll choose my words carefully, there might be an element of chaos in the public regulatory process that may or may not apply to a development proposal. And quite honestly, we did experience some chaos recently at the city of Moses Lake that did impact development and private developers. Putting all of that aside, again, the only thing that Mr. Olson is asking of you, is asking of the city this evening, is fairness and equity. That's just it.
The part that you missed because you do talk real quietly and I'm like, here, is she was answering your question, I think of, that you had brought up about, you know, when are the fees due? How's it figured out? She answered that question.
Yeah, and I apologize, I didn't hear.
Okay,
what
so
she
maybe
said.
there'll be some.
We'll give her a call tomorrow and
Okay.
Dale Green will, and they can go over it together.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Back to the fire impact fee ordinance. Are there any other comments or questions on the matter? I know staff is looking for some direction at this time. Councilmember Madewell?
Yes, explain administrative fees. Please.
So I'm going to have the city attorney weigh in on those. I believe those are statutorily required, but I'm going to have her weigh in on those.
So administrative fees are authorized by the impact fee statutes. They are not mandatory, but most jurisdictions include the administrative fee portion because for deferred payments that require some tracking by city staff to monitor the deferral and send out the notices. So there's an administrative fee attached to the deferrals. And then for just processing of the applications for the or when the application comes in, sending that through the impact fee process, there are administrative costs that the city incurs from staff. So those are charged back to the developer. Development pays for development has been the council's past philosophy. If council wants to modify those provisions, those are at the discretion of the council.
Okay, so we're already doing administrative things with the process.
All of our application processes, I believe we charge administrative fees to recoup staff time for those applications.
Can it not be taken out of the $420.85?
It wouldn't be taken out of that, you just wouldn't charge it.
Okay. I guess I feel for me that because we're already paying somebody to go through the processes, that add in addition to it is not necessary. Thanks.
Any other comments, questions? I would accept an motion at this time.
I move to adopt ordinance 3037 as presented.
Thank you. Need a second? Thank you. Any other discussion before we vote? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So we have 2 nays, 5 yes, motion passes.
Mayor, I believe Councilmember Eck voted no. Did you? Nay, he
Nay.
voted no. Yeah, so you had 4-3.
4-3, okay, thank you. Resolution 3956, need a motion to approve.
I move to adopt resolution 3956 as presented.
Thank you. Need a second? I will second that. Any other discussion on this? Councilmember Skog?
As I understand, this is a month-to-month relationship. Is it what we're voting on?
No.
This is.
No, it's the second part of the impact fee.
This is the fee
Yeah.
schedule.
Oh.
This is the fee schedule, right?
Never mind.
The fee schedule that you have, that was based off of a formula or some existing
It's the second half to this.
policy or fee schedule.
Right. Fee schedule is the formula. It comes out of the study. So.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 5, the interim agreement for sleep center operations. We'll turn it over to Kristen Peterson, our Community Development Director.
So before I get going, I want to make sure you can hear me. I think some of the microphones work better than others.
It's better.
He's gonna be closer.
Give that one that's in front of the police chief. He's always fired up. Give that one. There you go. You got one now.
Well, they already traded, so thank you. This sounds better to me already. So Kirsten Peterson, Community Development Director, as you said. So two city council meetings ago, we brought to you an extension or amendment to the contract that the city had with Hope Source to operate the sleep center. And as described then, the contract we had was tied to the Emergency Solutions Grant from the federal government trickle down all the way to us. And which is an interesting way to have a contract, but the ESG grant came to an end at the end of September. And so council did authorize us to just formalize the contract with the correct dates of that and also the additional amount of money that was spent over that time period. So you directed staff to go ahead and put together an RFP and come back with just a month-to-month contract with Hope Source. So in your packet, you do have a month-to-month contract. It'd just be cost plus 10% administrative. The RFP, I'm working on it right now. I should have it done by the end of the week, and I'm going to run it by Kevin and Catherine. They don't even know that yet, but the plan moving forward is we'll have a schedule put together for with any RFP. They have to respond within a certain time frame. And then my idea would be to pull together the ad hoc homeless committee to be part of the selection team for that. When we do have somebody selected to take on the operations, a new contract with more details would be put together and come back to council for presentation. At the last meeting, when we accepted our new grant from the county for $663,000, the state had given us a new set of guidelines. So whatever contract we put together, we'll be asking them to meet those guidelines, as well as the sleep center rules and everything else we put together. That we included the county's end of homelessness plan. So it will be a pretty comprehensive package. With this one tonight, we just simply referred back to the operating procedures from the current or the previous contract that we had with Hope Source, just for ease until we get this newer solution in place. So, any questions?
Questions or comments from the council? Councilmember Skog?
Kirsten, at this point, we're talking about the $660,000 amount, not the 2-point-something million.
Yeah, no, they would be paid out of that fund that you guys authorized at the last meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, the 663.
Just on a month-to-month basis as they.
And yeah, until we come back to you with a new contract with whatever entity is selected.
I know part of the month to month was just, taking a look at numbers. As far as, successes, who's getting off, who's getting on. I mean, I know there was a struggle with, what do we see the homeless situation really occurring? Is there a plan to have them? I know I read quite a bit of their stuff in the packet. But I don't know if some of it seems kind of ambitious, or what I see in the streets and what I read go like this. Is there some time we're going to want to make this not a month to month, but a more permanent thing? But when do we get information and say, how effective are you? Do we want to keep going with you? Not you, but Hope Source.
Well, the plan was to put out a proposal, a request for proposals for potentially a new operator.
Okay.
And so they have, and I am sure that they will reapply to be that operator. And within the request for proposals, we'll be asking them to identify how they would service the community, whether it's them or any other agency.
Right.
But we can definitely work that into any contract with whoever we select, that we get the kind of data reported to you monthly that you would like to get.
Well, I mean, I'd like to see something that they could come back and say, this is what we have accomplished.
Yeah, and
With not just a slideshow with pie charts that kind of gets rattled off, but literally, something more in depth than
yes,
talk
and
to
then
15
just,
people and something happened.
yeah, and I wanted to point out that in your packet, they did provide a response to you from some of the questions that were
Right.
posed at the last meeting. It's on page 108 of the packet. It's addressed to city council just in relation to some questions about their 9 advocates that they have in the county and how they serve the clientele. But that was just in response to one question. But I think they would be more than happy to provide a lot more detailed information. And if you want to let me know what your specific requests are, I can let them know. But I'm sure that they can pull together that kind of data and not just kind of like, this is what we do presentation.
Councilmember Swartz.
Yeah. Dave, thanks for bringing up this idea of getting the data back. I forgot that was part of the conversation, but I started thinking about it. Maybe we're asking for the wrong sort of data. I've spoken several times on what we identify as the homeless problem and all of the problems that go with it or that lie under that umbrella. And so maybe we get these people are tracked, correct? That is how we get the numbers that we get today. So is there an opportunity to track some things that, say, the rest of the citizenry is caring about? Maybe, indecent exposure, drug use, property crime, things of that nature. If we could get statistics that show that there's less of that going on by these people, I would like to see that. That would be a success to me. Is there any way to track that information?
So we have all that information. What we don't track is whether they're homeless or not homeless. And so
Can we by law?
I think we probably could by law. I think just creating the mechanism with our computer aided dispatch system, whether we can track the homeless piece or not. And
I think
so
that would be worth looking into.
yeah, Captain Sands is writing down as we're speaking. So
Yeah, I was hoping they weren't looking at me, so.
Gonna be a simple question asked after.
we would have to ask Mac whether we could add that feature to Spillman, our system, and how we would track that. So, and then making sure that as staff is contacting folks, that they're making sure that whatever that code is, that's included in the call. So.
Any other discussion? Staff is looking for a motion to approve the interim agreement.
So moved.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6, the Harrison K. Dano Park Sport Court Grant Proposal. Turn it over to Doug Coos, the PRC Services Director.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. On your screen right now, you see an overview of Dano Park with a couple of things overlaid on it. And this is what I'm looking at getting approval on from you is really the design of the property. Okay, we're not approving any funding for this at this point. We have a grant that we are pursuing to put these in. We were approached by Rave Sports, which is a group that puts in these sport courts. What we're looking at is right by the parking lot. You can see that there are 2 proposed futsal courts. The commitment for the city would be to grade, level, and asphalt those 2 areas. That costs approximately $25,000. We are looking or will be looking this next week or 2 with finances to some options that we have in mind for existing funds that we can use for this. So that would be our commitment. That would get us 2 futsal courts at that site in that location. What I wanted to have you see was the layout of this, because what we currently use this park for is soccer fields. You can see the soccer field fits. This is my estimate of scale. And it's a little bit easier to see than the other visual I have on this. So let me grab the other visual here. The other visual is this one. This is the overhead with, you can see the white lines. The white lines are the by the parking lot are the 2 futsal courts. You can see the full-size soccer field there, as well as coming off the other end of the park. We are looking at putting in, there are 2 parcels of property there that the city owns. In order to have those parcels be available for sale, to offset any cost of this or any other types of items that we might want to use that money for, we would need to either put in a cul-de-sac or this is a hammerhead here, and the parking would be on the park property. So this would allow for the hammerhead, the parking, the soccer field, the futsal courts, and then down the road, we would look at future improvements to the park because the traffic would obviously increase. But this is really just a quick approval of the overall design of the site so that we can move forward with the grant applications and get everything nailed down. And I'm happy to answer any questions as I can.
Councilmember Swartz.
Sorry, what was the estimated amount for the design?
Sorry, say that again.
What's the estimated amount just for the design?
The design is all covered by the park itself, or what design are you talking about? The design
I mean, that's what you need us to approve, is just moving forward with the design.
This is just the layout. We're just asking to be able to put the 2 futsal courts in there and move forward with the project. The design dollars, there's no design dollars. Our commitment as a city would be to put in the asphalt that goes under these courts. The court surfacing itself, the fencing around it, the nets. They would also provide balls for the community. So it would take our $25,000 investment in asphalting that area and probably leverage it into about $125,000 worth of improvements to the park.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Martinez.
I've seen and talked to Rave and Boys and Girls Club, and I feel like it's a very worthwhile project for the city to invest in. For those of you that may not know that area, it's just one big, huge soccer field. And so adding these futsal courts, and I don't know if that's part of your design, they can also be used for basketball, but I don't know if you're doing that. But I think it'll create more opportunities for kids to have something to do in that area, including Knowles Vista, because it's pretty short distance.
Correct.
So I like this project. I think it's a good investment.
So I would clarify that these courts would be for open play only. We would not be programming these courts. So these would always be available for kids to play on. I think we had talked about one of the courts, maybe putting a basketball hoop on, so that because these courts coming from Rave Sports, this is a initiative that the Sounders are involved in. Futsal is basically small-sided soccer on a court surface with a smaller ball. It is a growing sport. People are really interested in it, and the Rave Sports Group is trying to get, I believe it was 1,000 courts put in across the country. before the World Cup comes here. So that's the goal, and we're trying to jump on board. There are courts just like this in Yakima that have already been installed. So.
Councilmember Madewell?
So on this design that you have up on the board, would you still have the parking area off of Virginia on this one and over here?
Correct. The hammerhead on the Virginia side, my understanding is that in order to sell the two lots that the city owns off the property, off the park property, we would need to put that hammerhead in for a turnaround for fire and for emergency services.
Actually, I'm gonna clarify that. The reason those two lots were purchased on Virginia Street by the city years ago was so that they could put in a cul-de-sac. That's why they purchased the lots. I found that out later. And so, but instead of a cul-de-sac, we could put the hammerhead in and it would go on park property. It probably wouldn't affect the lots too much, but those lots are 180 foot deep. So even if you took 30 foot up the end to put in a cul-de-sac or some sort of hammerhead system, you're still got 150 foot deep lot. So.
Deputy Mayor Martinez?
One more question. Looking at the future goals for that area, are there porta potties there?
You are delving into my plan for world domination at Dano Park. Okay. I am looking at the identity of this park and trying to get this. You can see, looking at the overhead we've got here, that the irrigation here, this is on city water. I would absolutely love, and one of the targets I have is to change this over to artificial turf and then bring a bathroom on site, because this site would then get a ton more use. The additional parking on the other end is just a bonus to me. And if we can expand that even further, I'd be happier with that too. So world domination here gets this grass converted to artificial turf, gets 2 futsal courts put in and a bathroom on site.
Councilmember Scogg?
I'm assuming everybody knows what a hammerhead is. I don't. What is a hammerhead?
It's a turnaround for fire trucks. So as the fire truck comes into the end of that road, because it's a dead end road, the city could either put in a cul-de-sac that the fire truck could turn around in, or they would pull in off of Virginia Street into that parking lot, take a right or a left, back up, and then come out. So it's basically a 3-point turn. A hammerhead allows a 3-point turn.
It's also known as the end you hit the nail with.
And Dano Park is where?
Next to the Boys and Girls Club off Paxson.
Okay.
It's like a hammerhead shark. See?
I didn't even notice that one. I was looking at the paved one on the other side. Okay, fine. Fine. Yeah, it's a hammerhead.
At this time, I'll open for a motion to approve the design.
I'll make a motion to approve the design.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 7, Ice Arena 2023 and 24 season fee schedule amendment. Doug Coots, this is your topic again.
Yes, I won't keep you too long. I only have 500 slides on this one, so this will be pretty quick. Actually, I only have the one. So what I'm bringing to you today, we do our Ice Arena fees seasonally, and our season runs from November through into early March, hopefully. And what we're looking to do is, since we are projecting to open on November 10th, I'd love to get the fees that we put in the fee schedule with your budget packet approved for the coming season. Now, what I will make clear here is that what we have done this year under my direction and working with Madeline is we have incorporated a fee range here that will allow us to not have to come back and do this again next year. So next year, when you get your fee schedule, we will already have our range in for the top end that will allow us to get to our fee schedule for next year, for the next season, and then we'll update with 2025-26 fees at that time in the new fee schedule that would open 2025. Is that understandable? Did I confuse everybody with that? Because I was confused when I first talked through it myself. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions on the fee schedule.
Councilmember Schwartz?
Yeah, what's the methodology for the percent increase every year?
So we generally, what we have done in past is we go up about up 3%, 3.5%. What we've done this year is we've done a comparative study of other ice arenas in the area, looked at where we are in the market. We are significantly behind in our ice arena fees in our market. However, we are also a very seasonal facility, and we understand that being an outdoor facility, we're not going to be able to charge as much as the guys that are year round. We're trying to get back closer in line, so we are bringing them along a little faster than 3.5, but we are looking not to do a huge increase. So it was a targeted increase.
Great.
Any other questions or comments? Would accept a motion. Councilmember Scott.
Does that fee schedule and the use come anywhere close to breaking even, or is it still heavily subsidized? I can tell from the grin on your face that we're not even in the ballpark.
The ice arena costs us a lot to run. So let me leave it at that. I do not think that we are subsidizing the facility. It being outdoors does not help us. I've run indoor ice arenas, and indoor ice arenas are hard to break even. So an outdoor ice arena with a abbreviated season and not being able to have a full hockey program, figure skating program running, from September all the way through May, handicaps you in being able to complete that task. So we are not breaking even
With the use fees, but there are tourism dollars that are brought in from the Hockey Association.
Correct. The Hockey Association tournaments bring in people from out of town, and generally those folks, I believe we have at least 2 tournaments, if not 3 a year. Those bring in teams from out of town, and those guys put heads in beds.
The staff is looking for direction. If you would adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 8, the annual review and approval of the LTAC recommendations. This will be presented by our Assistant City Manager, Richard Huebner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What a wonderful segue you provided just a moment ago with your question about the Hockey Association. We're getting the breakdown up on the screen for you really quick. Apparently, I haven't installed the Click Share recently. It says ready to share, Ben. Now push the button again. There we go. All right. So in front of you this evening and in your packet for your consideration is the recommendations from the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee for the 2024 award cycle. We had 23 applications this year, including I had this number memorized earlier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 new applications, or at least applications, organizations, events that were not funded last year. So our Lodging Tax Advisory Committee had a very difficult task in front of them. They had $787,509 worth of requests, and they had $375,000 from our events, activities, and marketing section of money. That's the one that's commonly referred to as the LTAC. And then the Capital Projects Fund, which is commonly referred to as the city's 2%. So that's the delineation between those two. There's 2 separate 2% charges that are levied on a rental of a hotel room. The 2% that is goes toward events, activities, and marketing. That's the LTAC's 2%, and then the city's 2% by LTAC policy is generally designated for capital projects. So as you'll see, they had more than twice as much in requests as they had projected dollars to award. And so I want to take an opportunity and really recognize the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee chaired by Councilmember Eck, and Mr. Lawson, one of our board committee members, is in the audience this evening. Really want to commend them for the work that they did. They met on They met on Wednesday afternoon, October 12th, the 11th, and received over 2 hours of presentations from applicants to explain their application and what their goals were. They then met again for at least as long the very next morning while those presentations were fresh in their mind to make the recommendations that are before you. They also did a really wonderful job of spreading around the LTAC's 2%. There was only one application that did not receive an award. That was a request from the Manna Rays for capital projects, and those were projects that were going to be taking place at the school district's facility. And the LTAC felt that it was not an appropriate use of city funds to do capital projects at a facility owned by another government agency. And as your assistant city manager, I think that was a really smart decision by the board. So they have made recommendations before you for to utilize the full $375,000 of events, activities, and marketing dollars to support 19 applicants. And then they have made recommendations from the city's 2% for the full $150,000 to support some of the capital projects that were requested. Some of those went to city activities such as the Red, White, and Boom fireworks, the restock of the Visitor Information Center. But they also did a really good job of helping support some of the activities that were requested from the community. The Hockey Association that Mayor Myers mentioned a moment ago received funding to install permanent bleachers around the ice rink, which is a project that will certainly benefit the association, but also a city facility as well. So again, just wanted to really commend the LTAC for some really diligent work, some very, very thoughtful consideration that went into their awards. And they have the recommendations that are up on the screen and in your packet. Mr. Mayor, that will conclude my report, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Martinez.
I have a silly question. What constitutes a capital project?
Capital project is usually something that is a tangible physical improvement or alteration to a facility. So I mentioned the Hockey Association got $41,100 for the bleachers. The BMX Association is receiving was $1,750 from the events and activities pot, and then $39,099 from the capital projects. That money is to complete the projects at the BMX track that Mr. Coots presented a couple of weeks ago. So the retaining walls around the turns and the new office that is planned to be installed. So your capital projects are something that is a tangible upgrade or alteration to a facility.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
I just want to thank the LTAC committee because I was looking at this and you guys did really spread out the monies to quite a few entities. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I will mention that there were several that came in and presented that the LTAC was not familiar with in any way and came away, I think, really impressed by the presentation. So I'll take that cue, Deputy Mayor, to not only recognize the LTAC, but also the presenters for doing a really thoughtful presentation on their applications and really making the LTAC really making their jobs difficult, but they did it with aplomb.
I know that committee has put money aside. Do we know how much they have set aside and a lot of money?
I stole Madeline's microphone to make my presentation. So Doug, can you thank you. Mr. Coots is handing Madeline a microphone to answer that question.
They do have a significant reserve available. I'd have to go back and look at that information to get that for you, and I could do that at the next meeting.
But they have been, to Madeline's point, they have their recommendations that are made here. Madeline did a great job in advance of projecting the revenue for 2024 and taking out the reserves that are to be maintained per policy. So the 375 and the 150 that the LTAC was given to allocate already addressed the reserves and other policies that are set for the LTAC.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Councilmember Scog?
It seems like there's a lot of newbies for 2024.
Mhm.
You know, the ban raise are asking basically for $107,000.
They asked for, that would be correct, Mr. Scog. Yes, they asked for approximately 100,000, but bear in mind, I mentioned that the one that didn't get approved was the capital projects request. That one by itself was just under 85,000. So by not funding that one, the amount that the organization actually got funded was significantly less than their ask.
So what does the 787 number?
The 787,509 is the total amount that the 23 applicants actually requested.
For the 24 applicants.
23.
I'm looking at 24 requests, 23 requests.
For 2024, I'm sorry, I thought you were saying the number of applicants. There were 23 applicants for 2024 funds. Yes.
Yeah, I'm that, okay. And it just.
My apologies. It's been a long day.
And then the fairgrounds, I would have thought that was a county thing rather than a city thing, but.
The county fairgrounds, so that in order to be an eligible recipient, organizations need to be either a nonprofit agency or a government agency.
Okay.
So the county is eligible to apply to the city fund. The fairgrounds can also apply to the county fund if they so choose. And then it's, you know, the work of the LTAC of the city to decide whether they want to recommend the county projects. The big reasons for supporting events that take place at the fairgrounds, even though it is a county facility, is that those visitors will stay in city hotels, they'll eat in city restaurants, so they're bringing their tax dollars with them to the city, even though their event is.
Would the rodeo association say that they're not going to have a demo derby if we didn't pitch in $65,000?
Well, so they requested 65, they were awarded a little over 30. So just to make that delineation there, that was not necessarily a question that the organizations were asked, but they did describe how the event would be different without that funding. So a big piece, the reason that the Rodeo Association's award was split between the events activities marketing pool and the capital pool is they were awarded 15175 to do some marketing and some work to really bring those visitors in. So that's the events activities marketing piece. And then the capital project funds was to support getting a scoreboard for the event. And so to your question of would they say that the event would not take place? No. But would they be able to attract as many visitors to Moses Lake for the event without that support? That's really where the financial assistance comes in.
I guess that's my question is it's a pretty well a packed house, every one anyway. I don't know who decides what goes where. And maybe that was a done deal before I was involved, but it would seem to me, I would as a policy would like to be more of an incubator for new things coming up or new events or, you know, something that didn't have, you know, 20,000 people paying tickets to go to already.
So that is a policy that the council can set to give that direction to the LTAC. This discussion does lead me to a reminder for the council, and this is a state law requirement under the LTAC. You as a body cannot change the recommendations that are in here. You can say yes or no. And you can do that individually. So if you wanted to recommend, Mr. Scog, that we don't fund the rodeo, just as an example, what that would be is a council vote to remand it to the LTAC for consideration. But in terms of setting policy that, you know, you would like as the city council to have the LTAC take that approach of being more of an incubator, that's something that you as the council can take a vote and you know give that direction to the LTAC. But at the end of the day, they make their recommendations and you can say yes or no. But if you wanted to change the dollar amount, it would actually need to go back for the LTAC and them to consider that request.
But the yes and no has already occurred.
No, the yes or no is what's in front of you tonight.
Councilmember Eck?
Yes, Barry, do you have any comments, yes or no, about what Dave has to say or anything tonight?
Up to the mic, please, if you're going to comment.
Come on forward. No, I know. That specific. Thank you for coming.
Councilmember Schwartz?
Yeah, I think to Councilman Scogg's questions, just so we're all clear on this, the applicants that are included on this list are the entirety of the applicants who applied, correct?
That's correct. Yes, there's nobody that was left off your page in front of you this evening. The one thing that I would mention to the question of do you fund one event or another is, you know, these events have reached a certain peak. You're absolutely right. But if they were to lose a portion of their budget, then they may actually, you know, they may shrink. They may, those folks may decide to go somewhere else or not participate.
Yes, and
Sorry,
that's,
Mr.
you know, I understand, Dave, your point, certainly, but it's also worth noting the realities a lot of times of not-for-profit entities, organizations, et cetera, that put these sorts of things on. Sister City organization here in Moses Lake comes to mind when I think about this, that no matter how strong an organization is, over time, that strength tends to wane. And so some of these things, though, are attractions that are part of the culture here, the demo derby and the rodeo being two of them. So, you know, and the fact is that probably this amount of money is salutary in comparison to, you know, what the impact of the economic activity surrounding these is. So I'm good with letting the board have, you know, I mean, they kind of have their finger on the pulse.
And one thing I would just add really quick to Councilmember Schwartz's point was that you'll notice that there were, so on the page in front of you is the amount that the organization was funded at in 2023 and then what they requested in 2024. And I'm not gonna name any of the organizations specifically, but there were some that requested an increase in 2024 above where they were funded in 2023. And I want to give the LTAC a real lot of credit on this. If those organizations could not explain what those additional funds would do operationally, if it looked or seemed to the LTAC like it was just to provide additional profit to the organization, then that was one of the ways that they help bridge the gap between the requests and funds were available. So there are multiple organizations that asked for additional funds that were again funded at their 2023 level because the LTAC didn't feel like they really explained how the additional funds would help them grow the event.
Councilmember Fancher?
I would agree with Councilman Schwartz, and what I would say is I have watched this committee over the many years of being here really focus on what the goal is, and that is getting bodies here to stay in our hotels that generates this money and eat here to generate this money. And I entrust that committee, which has had over the years different people on it that are in that industry a lot, some of them, to make some good recommendations. So, I mean, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the recommendations.
Okay, we do have a motion.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a second. We do have further discussion. Deputy Mayor Martinez.
To Councilmember Scogg's point, do you advertise the LTAC? I know I've seen it, but I live in that environment, so to speak. So for newcomers that may not know that there's money.
So me personally, yes. I know the other two members on the committee, they're actively advocating for that as well. And we invite everyone in the city to do that. So we're always looking for more applicants to better our city. So, yeah.
And I think the city puts it out on the website as well as social media.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was actually, in case anybody, thank you, Ben, for telling me, in case anybody saw Facebook show up on the screen, I was not checking my Facebook page during the meeting. I was going to the city's website. I actually wanted to give credit to Lynn Lynch, our communications and marketing specialist. She did a really good job of helping us get the word out through the city's Facebook page and our website that this was open and available. And she actually very, very jokingly spoke with me during, the day of the presentations. When we looked at the number of applications and the amount of money, she said, I might have done my job too well, because she was also one of the applicants for the city's tourism marketing campaign. So really want to give credit to our committee members and our staff for helping get the word out about these funds, so that it's not just the same applicants every year, but that we did get some new groups this year.
We do have a motion and a second on the table. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, council.
Item number 9, the volunteer handbook, resolution 3964 by our interim city manager, Kevin Fuhr.
Thank you, Mayor. I brought this up at the last meeting. We created a volunteer handbook. We got a sample from WCIA with suggested policies to put in the volunteer handbook. The policies that are in the volunteer handbook came directly out of the employee handbook, with some minor modifications where we changed employee to volunteer and took some areas out that only applied to full-time employees and not volunteers. So this handbook would be used throughout the city in any department that has volunteers, not just for the airport commission, which is where this conversation started. So it would be used across, the PD has 5 or 6 volunteers. So we would use this handbook for everybody. If the council approves this tonight, then I'll take it to the airport commission at their next meeting and say, here you go. There's a waiver that's included with it. They sign the waiver, they read the handbook, acknowledge that they've read the handbook, and then we're off and running. And I'm going to leave it at that because we're after 9 o'clock.
Councilmember Schwartz.
Just a quick question. I mean, this is anybody, correct? So
Any volunteer.
the students that were here helping Bill Ockett and all of that, they would sign this, everybody.
So if you're volunteering like in a one-time, coming in for the day to help do something like that, no. This is people that are actual volunteers for the city. We have applications for people that want to volunteer on a permanent basis.
Thank you. Okay.
That's what we're talking
Just
about.
wanted to make sure it wasn't gonna get ridiculous.
No. If you're coming in to do some landscaping projects, one of our medians, we're not going down this road. So.
Deputy Mayor Martinez.
Just want to clarify, so this kind of got initiated by some things going on at the airport or with the airport commission. This is not the only thing that we're doing, correct? Is there still something an agreement that I think the president said they still didn't know what the agreement was with the city?
So
We're still working on that?
There's an agreement that they will sign that acknowledges that they've read the handbook and that they acknowledge that they know what the rules are, that they have to let staff know when they're going to be working, what they're going to be doing, stuff like that. And that's in the agreement section. That's not in the handbook. So there is an agreement that will go with this. That makes sense?
I'm not sure I'm asking the question completely, because it sounds to me, and not to delay our meeting, but it sounds to me with the airport commission that they don't really know their role with the city. And so they were hoping to get some clarification. There was supposed language, I don't know if you call it a contract, that we were supposed to be doing for them to understand how they work with the city.
No, we're not doing that. What we're doing is we're going to provide them a handbook and direction on. They will tell the city, we are going to do maintenance around the airport, like mow the lawn, pull weeds, stuff like that. That will be spelled out. They'll sign the agreement saying, we're going to once a week, we're going to mow the lawn and we're going to pull weeds. And they're going to sign the agreement.
I think what you were asking was something totally separate. Just their What is their role as a commission? That's what she.
Oh, yeah, no, this is not that. This is just them doing operational stuff around the airport
We
area.
already have what we expect from them. They just don't quite understand, I guess, what.
There's a whole question about their role and what their role is. This is not that. This is, they're volunteering to do work around the city property.
Are we working on that role
No,
that they said they didn't know because they don't have?
no, we're
from the
waiting.
city?
We're waiting to see what's going to happen with the airport in the future before we go down any other roads.
Okay.
This
I
handbook
just wanted
is
to make
for
sure
the
that
entire
that's
city.
still going on, that this is just a portion of what needs to happen out there.
We'll figure out the airport thing as we get the appraisal and figure out what the council wants to do with it.
Okay, thank you.
Looking for a motion to adopt the volunteer. handbook.
I so move we adopt the handbook resolution as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
One of you. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving along, a lot of items on this agenda. Item number 10, the city manager contract. This one presented by us. We have reviewed applicants. We have interviewed. We've had applicants withdraw. Recently, we have had interest from our interim city manager to fill that position permanently. We have offered that position to him and have a contract that we need to review and accept. Have you all been able to review and accept the contract for the city manager?
Yes.
Any questions or comments on specific contract?
I don't have any comments. Appreciate you knowing what you're getting into. I would like to make a motion to move to approve Mayor Myers to execute the city manager contract to Kevin Fear.
Thank you. Third.
Fourth.
Well, I guess we don't need any further discussion then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Mayor, can I just say thank you?
Thank you.
Trusting me with this, and I received everybody's goals, and we are already starting to work on those. So
Thank you. We can move on to the administrative reports with our administrative reports.
I don't believe we have any. We're good. It's a late night.
Council committee reports. Councilmember Schwartz.
Yes, since I get to go first, I'll take advantage of it. We had a community development municipal services meeting today. And it sounds like there's some very exciting developments happening in relationship building with our water issue. I think we all here in the city recognize that we've got some really great things going on that benefit more than just our community. And so we're hoping that the powers that be recognize that and help us along. So I think as Richard and staff shared with us that we've pursued a meeting which will happen next week, I think, this with some elected people in our state and at the federal level. Is that correct? So that's very exciting, and we're doing some work amongst the council as well to further those efforts. So hopefully we'll have some more water soon.
Councilmember Madewell.
I don't have anything.
Councilmember Fancher.
So piggybacking that, the Grant County Economic Development Council had a meeting Wednesday, the normal meeting, and then Wednesday night they did their kickoff for their prosperity membership drive. What was amazing is the goal that they had set, and this is countywide, looking for a $2 million commitment over the next 5 years. And as of that night, and there's some pretty large players, well, the city being one, they couldn't count their funds because we're not budget approved yet, and multiple places are like that. but they were already at 1.75 million. And that kickoff is to really go after people they haven't even talked to and members. So what I would say is the county is, to me, collectively embracing the growth of the community. So we do have some heavy lifting coming.
Councilmember Scogg. Councilmember Eck. Deputy Mayor Martinez.
Very quickly, the watershed meeting, if you guys remember, we were awarded $3 million federal money to help keep the lake clean or clean it up. And we do actually have an action item now that's going to spend some of that money, and that is to spray some sort of substance on the lake to basically seals the floor of the lake so things don't come up. Anyway, that's set to start at the McConnelly, is that how you say it? That section of the lake, Connolly, yeah. So finally an action item. The other thing too, speaking of water, the Columbia Basin Development League is hosting their annual meeting Tuesday, November 14th. It's out at Big Bend. Lots of people involved with water there too.
The only thing I have to say is I appreciate all the comments and questions from the council, even though our meetings do sometimes run a little long. I've been on boards where they just rubber stamp approve, and it has got them in trouble. So I appreciate your tenacity and efforts to make sure that your questions are answered. We will now be going into an executive session for 15 minutes to discuss potential litigation and review performance of public employee pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, parentheses 1, subsection I and G. And our next regular council meeting will be November 14th at 6:30. Our meeting is adjourned.